but I'm going to tell you how I do things. It may not be the only way to do things, and I'm sure it's not, but it's just how I do it. And if you end up taking home some value from this, that's my mission. That's what I'd like. So I'm going to share some of the tips and tricks that I've used over the years and learned over the years. I usually start our meetings at the villages with just a review of things. My background was martial arts and all that, so we always start at the beginning and you go through your katas and things like that. So we start with ABCD, which is anchor, bevel, cut, and D, which stands for dance. But if you're not good at mounting things on the lathe, it could stand for duck, but that's okay. So because it's going to fly off the lathe, but hopefully it doesn't fly off the lathe. So there's 5 movements in turning: sliding the gouge along the tool rest, pushing the gouge into the work, rotating the gouge for a larger or smaller bite, uh, raising or lowering the handle, and swinging the handle in the direction of the cut. So those are, the 5 movements, and it's kind of like rubbing your belly and chewing gum and patting your head and running up steps, and you just have to pull it all together. But once you master it, it makes it, you can make it look easy. As we all started with bowls, and we make these brown and round things. And after a while, they're kind of boring, and you don't really need any more of them. And you've given them to friends and family, and they don't want any more of them. So you have to make it a little bit more interesting. So you try to make them thinner. So that's a logical progression, right? And then what I did was, I'm not an artist. My education when I started before business was engineering. So as an engineer, I struggle with the whole right brain, left brain thing, and I've really struggled with it. So for the last 10 years, I've taken classes on how to embellish turnings because I can't think of this stuff on my own. So I try to deal with people that are much more artistic than I am that can show me things that I can duplicate, and that's basically what I've done. Wherever possible, this evening I will give credit to those who I know came up with or where I first saw some of the embellishments, but I'll show you a couple pieces. I'm going to pull them back so they'll come back into the camera. So this is a maybe we could do an overhead. Thank you, Tracy. This is a Bastogne walnut. So this is a beautiful piece of walnut. This is a super thin bowl. And to make it a little bit more interesting, I added a 2mm leather bead to the end. And it just makes it a little bit nicer and a little bit more clever. I textured the back and added a laser engraved logo. So I don't know if you can see the texturing. It's pretty hard with the camera, but at any rate, I use, with most of the texturing I do, I use a Simon Hope tool out of England, and I'm going to share all that information. And I have a sheet where it lists where you can source some of these tools if you wish. But this is also similar size bowl with its Bastogne walnut. It's a lot more interesting. It has the same 2mm leather bead, but with a top that is interference painted. This is using the Joe Sonia paint, and it also has the same texture on the back, yet I highlighted that with gilt cream. So this is a couple of colors of gilt cream, Chromacraft gilt cream, which is an excellent company, but the bowl is undercut, so it's a little bit cooler. But it made something that was otherwise a peanut bowl and kind of boring to something that's a lot more decorative and fun. So I've struggled to make things really good looking. It's been a little bit of a bumpy ride, but we're there. Some of the items that I make these days have, and you can see as I move this around, it's shifting between purple and blue. So these are called chameleon flakes, and we're going to show you guys how to put those on tonight. Chameleon flakes are, they're fairly inexpensive. You can buy them on Amazon, but as you change your viewing angle and change the light angle, they change color, which is kind of cool. So it's kind of a neat thing. I do put the 2mm leather bead on many of the bowls that I do, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that this evening as well. I use paints from Joe Sonia, which I really like. I think Joe Sonia is a great company. They have sales several times a year, and their prices are really quite reasonable. You're not going to spend a tremendous amount of money. I can see that now. Thank you. Sorry, I'm not the best at this. But on this one, I did the texturing on the back, added the embellishing gilt cream with a purple color because it kind of matched the purple top. And I laser engrave everything. So most of the bowls that I make, I use an expansion chuck or a mortise rather than a tenon. And then I hide that because, you know, it's not a great thing to look at by putting the laser engraving. My laser engraving, I own the artwork. Actually, my wife drew this, and I can expand and contract that. I can make it really, really tiny. Somewhere here, like this bowl has a really tiny version of it. You can see this is really, really small. But speaking of this big bowl was turned with a small expansion chuck. So there's a lot of leverage there for that to fly out of the lathe. So getting your mortises with the proper angle is really, really important. So this has some texture here as well. We're going to show you guys how to do the texture. How I do that is I use a round skew, basically, that's ground at the angle of my chuck jaws. I use typically the Vicmark, the VM100, VM120, VM150. This is a VM100, obviously, because it's really tiny. And this was, I was asked to do a demonstration for carbide tools, which the Easy Wood has asked me to do that. So I'd never used them before to turn the whole item with. So this is the first one I've done. And it really came out great. I was super happy with it. And then I just added the chameleon flakes, and I added a 2mm red leather bead on the end, which was kind of cool. So you can add the leather to the top, and we're going to show you how to do that. I learned some lessons in doing this through some trial and error, and we're going to show you guys how to do that this evening as well. This is more of a ogive type shape to it. It's also a piece of walnut, but feel free to come up and look at any of these. This is one I just did over the weekend. It's kind of a half-assed hollow form. I had to figure out how to paint the top of this, which I use when you use the Josanya interference paint. You have to put that on a black lacquer. So the chameleon flakes are over gesso because you need toothy gripping, but for the interference paints they have to go over a black ebonizing lacquer. So I had to figure out how to mask that off, and I could have, you know, put tape and a string and done a couple things, but I found an easier way. Someone gave me the idea: just put a balloon in there. I blew up a balloon, blocked it off perfectly, came out great. So worked out really well. So it's kind of a flying saucer. It's the Jetsons theme, but at any rate, some of us are old enough to remember the Jetsons. So some of us not. So, but so that's where we are. So I modify a lot of the tools. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to have a very simple embellishment. So embellishment is anything you do to modify something from the norm. And it makes it more interesting to look at. So I am using an Easy Wood tool, and I've owned this tool for probably close to 20 years, and it's been sharpened hundreds of times. So what I do is I sharpen it by taking it off. I put it over a diamond stone, and I put as much pressure as I can on it with a little bit of lubricant. I look for that gray slurry on top, and I know it's sharp, and I can feel that it's sharp. I go back about 1/16 of an inch, and I break that edge. So all the work I just did to make it sharp, I break the edge on the angles so that only the tip is sharp. And the reason I do that is if the edge is real sharp, a lot of times it'll fray up the side of it. So I just do the end. With carbide, generally, I've only started using carbide to turn things recently. I've been a traditional tool person, but I've used this for detailing, and it's worked out well. I've had it, like I said, for quite a long period of time. I'm going to put on the safety glasses, and we'll cut a groove and show you what this is like. So I'm going to try to get a little bit of speed up because carbide does better with speed, and then we're going to do the texturing after this. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's all you need to mount the leather. So I made a half round, and it's perfectly smooth. It's not frayed on the end. It doesn't require any sanding. And then I'll put in adhesive, and I'm going to show you guys how to do that. But that's a future step. Okay. The texturing at the back of the bowl, I'm going to use a 3/8 bowl gouge. Am I doing something wrong? Okay. You know, if you guys have questions, feel free to yell out the questions. I have no issue with that. And my goal is to give you as much information as possible. And there are no silly questions. The only silly question is the one you don't ask. So if you can ask the question, that's great. So first thing I'm going to do is I want the bowl to sit on the outer rim. I don't want it necessarily to be flat all the way across because I'm going to put a texture. And if the texture is a little higher in one area, it's going to make a wobbly bottom. It already has a pretty small bottom, so I'm going to angle in. So to angle in, I'm going to lower the tool rest just a smidge and just kind of pick up a cut going in. Doesn't take a heck of a lot. Makes a nice smooth cut. Then we're going to take this Simon Hope tool. I like the Simon Hope tool. Am I doing okay? Okay. Okay. So the Simon Hope tool, I'm going to try to get that where everybody can see that. Is this okay, right here? Okay. So the Simon Hope tool uses hardened cutters, which is great because you don't have to sharpen them. The Sorby tool can require sharpening. So you can see the bowl with a pineapple. So that is done with a Sorby tool. And basically you have a plate on the bottom that you can lock in. So I go +1 and I go -1, and I can go back and forth and get that crosshatch, and it makes a nice pineapple looking thing. This is more freehand because you kind of have to know how to do it. So the key to this stuff is RPM and pressure. And then there's a little bit more to it where you have to basically learn how to angle it. So it's going to happen really quick. So I'm going to do the best I can. But basically, if you go fast with the speed, it'll change the design. Because I can't control this angle like I could with the Sorby, it's not repeatable. So I can't go back and say, I just want to touch it up and make it a little different. You have one shot at this. After that, you're going to have to recut it and start again. So to start with this, see how I'm grabbing it like this, and I'm going to pull it towards me. So it'll go something like this. And that's it. And we'll see what that looks like. And as you can see, that's a beautiful spiral all the way through. So with a lot of, I'm going to pass this around, hopefully, if I can ever get it off the lathe. So I use the Glazer high-tech screw mount for a couple different reasons. Is it uses a, I forgot to do one thing on this, which I need to do. It uses a 1/4-inch drill bit rather than the 5/16, or depending on if you're using the Nova or the one-way. So the next tool you can't buy that I'm going to use, and it's kind of a cool tool. It's called a free sample, and you can get these at any of the big box stores. And basically what you do with this is, I like this because it's safer than the wire burning. So with the wire, you have this wire, it's really hot. You've got to deal with that. You can get burned on it. With this, it never gets hot. So I get a little bit of RPM. And the reason I do this is because it keeps the paint from bleeding as well. So if you go into an area that's not treated properly, it'll keep that paint from running in that area. It burns it quite nicely. But these last a long time, and it's just a free sample. The color, this green one works the best. No, I'm kidding. The color does not matter. This is called a free sample. A free sample. It's just a little piece of Formica. Yeah, it's just a Formica. It's a Wilson Art laminate jade fusion, if you want the green. But it works really well. Yeah, yeah. Tell him you want to, but you're not sure what color, so you need a bunch of samples. So we use them all the time at the villages because people tend to burn themselves. Um, but the other thing I do is this is an Amazon item. You can get 3 of these for $10. That's a bargain. And basically, it's a great way to clean out any debris from your texturing. Ah, it is a dishwashing brush made of natural fibers, which is like, I don't know whether it's bamboo or whatever it is, but it just does a fantastic job. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, let's pass this around. I try to get around 450, 500 RPM. If you go a little slower, it kind of changes the width of the cut. If you go real fast, it'll just muddle it all together. And each tool is different. This one has a pretty blunt end and a rounded end, and it works a little bit differently. But basically, what I'm doing is I'm pushing it in with a fair amount of force. So I'm pulling it so my hand is closed, and I'm pulling it, and I'm using the leverage. So I'm creating a little leverage. And that's correct. That's correct. Yeah, it'd be hard to do it the other way. So, okay. So that's that. Okay. So the other thing I do is I add texture to the underside of the bowl. And I've done that with using cup burrs. And cup burrs are kind of cool. They're relatively easy to use. You don't really have to be the super duper artist or super duper skilled to deal with them. There's only a couple rules. One is you try not to leave flat spots on the top, and you try to get the right size cup burr. So cup burrs require a fair amount of torque. So some of the smaller machines, they just don't have the torque to work with a cup burr. This one from Power Carving Depot, Ken Riz's new company, has plenty of power. It has no issue with that. I'm using here 2 different types of cup burrs. So when I do that, it actually doesn't take very long for to go through an entire bowl. I'm not going to do it the entire bowl because it just smokes up too much in here. So I have a system at home that sucks the smoke out. It's a lot easier to deal with. So as you can see from this piece, hopefully, when you guys zoom in, is there a zoom or no? Yeah, will it zoom in to the piece here? Awesome. Oh, it's a manual zoom. Oh, okay, that's good. That's good. So you can see here that I have not added finish to the area that I'm going to texture. And the reason for that is because the finish will get into the burr and it'll clog it up and it'll require cleaning. At home, I have an ultrasonic cleaner, so I can just throw the burr in there and it cleans the burr after 2 cycles of 15 minutes. It goes pretty quickly. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the texture here by using the Power Carving Depot Big Blue. So we're going to go through that pretty quick. Now, I'm told by Ken Rizza that the real pros, they don't use the foot piece. But I guess I'm not a real pro because I use the little foot piece. And I think it works pretty well. You are? Okay. So turn that on. Make sure the foot piece works. And it does. Okay. We're going to do a couple different sizes here. So before I get into that, I'm going to tell you the secrets here because there's secrets, right? So the secret is if you buy cup burrs, and you can buy them from MDI, and on the handout sheet that I have, which I think I've sent to Harold, they will not work. So I have a bigger one here. We'll do the overhead again. There we go. Cool. Okay, so this is one that I haven't used, but I've modified. So if you take a brand new cup burr and you try to use it, it's going to walk all over your piece and make a hell of a mess, which would be tough to recover from. So what you have to do is you have to take a CBN wheel, and if you're comfortable with it, get a slight angle and keep turning it with I use a 350 grit, and I turn it slightly till I just begin to get the teeth exposed. Once the teeth are exposed, you're done. You don't have to do anything else to it. So it works really well by doing that. And whether it's a small one or a big one, the rules are the same. You have to get the teeth exposed, otherwise it's going to walk. So I have quite a few of them. I've modified all of them. The new ones have to be modified before you use them. They're not expensive. The cup burrs are relatively inexpensive. You can buy them in sets. There's a Michael Keyes set that's available from MDI. There's several other sets that are available for these things. They're not super expensive. And if you want to come up and look at them, you're welcome to. Okay. I'm doing the outside of it, which makes the inside teeth come out and actually protrude slightly. So the teeth are all on the inside. The outside is smooth. You could hold it up against your hand at speed. So I'm just grinding that outside off till I get the teeth exposed, and then it will make it real easy to use. Yes. Yes, certainly. I think it's easier to see on a bigger one, so I'll give you a bigger one. This one's had a little bit of use, but I think you get the point. Okay, I'm going to use a fairly good size cup burr, and the key to this is your angle of approach. If your angle's a little bit off, you can always adjust it. Mind it, the camera? Okay. So if your angle of approach is off a little bit, just get it started and reposition. Okay, I'm going to try to do this. If you notice, I try to have one finger on the unit, like my baby finger. It's also a good idea to wear gloves when you're doing this. If you're doing it without gloves, what will happen is you'll look like a chain smoker. Your hands will be brown. So that's just someone. I've heard that from a friend. A friend was asking, but I actually had that happen. So at any rate, so I'm going to start the machine, and you can hear it. It's really loud, right? No, that's it. There's nothing. And I'm going to just go down. And the key is to leave a round top on the top. And I give a little bit of space between them. And again, I'm using my hands to position this. And you can tell by the sound when you're down far enough, but I'll only do a couple of those. And then I'm going to change burrs. And these are hot, so you got to be careful with them. And I'm going to do the smaller burr. So I do a mix of big burrs and smaller burrs. And there's actually more cuts with the smaller burr, and we'll be able to pass this around. Okay, so at any rate, this is again where that little brush comes in handy to get rid of all the debris, and we can pass this one around if somebody wants to grab it. My glasses are fogging because of heat. So that's basically what I do. To go around, it takes maybe 15 minutes to do all of it. You're going to change burrs and go around again. It takes a little longer to do the smaller ones. But the key is to make sure you don't have flat spots at the top. When you're doing texturing, flat spots are a bad thing. You want it to have some sort of curve to it. Okay. This is still hot, but not enough to burn. Okay, so that's that part of it. The rest of it we're going to do with the painting. So does anybody have a preference as to what we do first? If we do the Joe Sonia paints or we do the chameleon flakes? No preference? Chameleon flakes. Okay, chameleon flakes it is. Okay. So, no, they're not. So Emma Cook was the first person I saw with the chameleon flakes. Thanks. Her chameleon flakes are quite pricey. I think I brought some. Yes, they're $38.50 for chameleon flakes. These are about $17 or $18 on Amazon, and they give you 8 colors. She gives you 6 colors, and these have worked really well. And they even have one that has an intense color shift, which is kind of cool, by the same company. So it's a company called Let's Resin, and they're just not that expensive. So it's pretty easy to do this. The key is to not get a buildup of the sizing. So the sizing is an acrylic sizing, and you can buy this at Hobby Lobby or really almost anywhere. It's primarily used for people that do gold leaf and stuff like that. And basically with that, when you apply it, you don't want to have a okay. Good. Yeah, I can move this too. Sorry about that, guys. Would be better. Yeah, here we go. Okay. So you can see I had a big giant white spot there. So that big white spot like that, you can see my head. Okay. Well, how's that? Any worse or better? What I want to do is I want to eliminate any big buildup because this would be really sticky. And it's going over gesso. So the gesso that I use is Joe Sonia gesso. And it's pretty easily worked with. I was going to, I didn't want to trouble you guys with a demonstration of me painting gesso because there's 2 reasons. One is I'm not a really good painter, and the second reason is it just takes forever to go through it. So what I do to make it look better than my skill level is before I do the gesso and before I do anything else, I coat the inside and the outside of the bowl. So if I miss with the brush with the gesso, I can just wipe it off. It's pretty simple. It doesn't affect anything. The other thing with the gesso is with a lot of acrylic paints, you have to use what's called mediums to thin it. I'm in the shot, sorry. So you have to use mediums, and it becomes complex using mediums because you have to match the brand, and they become, a little bit challenging. This dries almost instantly, so it just takes a few seconds to dry. And I'm going to just rinse this off in the sink, and we will be good to go. Oop. Not the best sink for this. Okay. When you apply the chameleon flakes, they're applied by dabbing on. And what I like to do is use a couple different colors so that it gives a different effect to it. I can just, for this one, I can use the regular chameleon flakes. They give you a fairly generous portion. These have been used quite a few times. This color is, this is violet and blue, which I know I've done a lot of stuff with violet and blue. Here's one with lime green and blue. So maybe we'll take those two. I know. Do you think that'll make anybody sick? Probably not. Hope not. And here's a brown and yellow. That's not my favorite. And here's another one, pink and chartreuse. That doesn't sound good either. But so they give you a lot of different colors. So here's a golden olive. What do you think of that? Golden olive? I think that sounds pretty cool. Okay, and then we'll add a little bit of color. So you want a brush that's fairly floppy, fairly, it's got a lot of loose fibers. You don't want one that's been used before and has a lot of stiffness towards the back. You want it to be really to be able to pick up these pieces, and you can see they just blow around. So it's up to you if you want to use a respirator. Trying not to breathe. I'm trying not to get my head in the way too, which it is. So I'm mixing it up a little bit, and there's no rhyme or reason or no real rules. I just try to spread it out so I can have room for another color. And all I'm doing is dabbing and dropping. And to set this, we're just going to give it a quick coat of lacquer. Okay, now it's time for another color. So that's the gold. So let's do, how about pink and chartreuse? Does that sound interesting? I don't know. So it comes out better than you think. It looks a little bit rough along the way, but it actually looks pretty cool. There's one more thing I learned. In the first couple of these things that I did, I felt that, well, I needed to get every little space covered. And the reality is it just didn't look that great. It looked a lot worse. So now when I do it, I leave a fair amount of the black exposed. I use a chromacraft. So this goes relatively quickly because I'm just about done right there. So it actually doesn't look too bad, does it? So get rid of the excess, and I fill in the blanks. So I fill in the blanks by going over this, and then I'll get rid of the excess here. Christmas here. Okay, so that's just about done. I got a couple little pieces in there, and I would just give that a spray over the top. What do you think? So you know, I'm not an artist, but I stayed at a Holiday Inn. So Express, yes, free breakfast, really. But I think it really came out great. And then I'll just hit that with a little bit of lacquer, and that'll fix it because it's still a little bit sticky because of the sizing. So a quick lacquer, I'm going to just do it over the sink. So I use a Chromacraft clear acrylic lacquer. And it dries almost instantly as well. But it doesn't take much. This is a case where less is more. So you don't want to put a thick coat of lacquer on there, but this is done. We wouldn't put any more than what I just did. That's the end of it. So this is fixed. It's ready to go. I wouldn't do anything else to it. If you put a really thick coat of lacquer on there, it degrades from the appearance of it. Okay, so that's how to do that. The next thing we're going to do is the Josanya paints. And I think I can do that right here as well. So I'm going to move this stuff out of the way. And we'll do that. And I think if you guys handle it from the side, it's good to go. Don't put your hand on the top. Just kind of grip it like that, and it'll be good to go. There you go. The black base on that one is gesso. So the gesso is the toothy paint, and this is the gesso that I used. Gesso comes in a couple different colors that I know of. It comes in white and black. I don't know what other colors it comes in, but it's a toothy paint. And I dilute the gesso because if you put gesso on straight, it's kind of thick and clumpy. So it'll fill the voids of the texturing that you're doing. So you got to be a little careful of that. The gesso, sure. And so the key to dealing with the gesso is wet water. Does everybody, it's not a joke. I know I'm full of jokes, but not this. So wet water is a mix of Dawn and water, Dawn dishwashing soap. And it basically, it sets it up so it doesn't, it's a surfactant, something like that. And it does a fantastic job of thinning out something like gesso. You don't need a medium for it. Where other acrylic paints, you really need the medium. Otherwise, you dilute it and the color becomes less. It doesn't coat as well. With gesso, it doesn't matter. And what I use, I mix it. That's a great question because I was just going to answer that. So I use a special tool, and what I found is the chive and onion work best. And so I save these little lids, and I use those as my mixing palette. These things are the handiest thing ever. I mean, I use them in the kitchen, you know, cooking eggs, and it rolls off and goes on the floor. It's, throw it on one of these. It won't go anywhere. It's great. So these things are fantastic. I save them and use them all over the shop for different things. And if you don't want to clean it, throw it away, get another one. It's no big deal. Yogurt ones work great too as well. And I can pass these two around. But there's not a tremendous amount of Dawn in here. And I mixed this up many, many years ago, but here's the gesso. So whoever wants to get the gesso, thank you guys. Usually the rule of thumb is like 100 to 1. So yeah, you're just breaking the surface tension basically. And if I were to put a drop of water from the faucet, it would make a bubble here. If I put this, it lays flat. It's the most amazing thing, you know, for something so simple. You know, and you make it yourself. It costs you nothing. And just get a spray container from the dollar store, and this will last you years because you just don't use that much of it. I don't know because I only buy the Joe Sonia stuff. I have quite a bit of it. I buy quite a bit, so I don't know. I, yeah, Golden is Golden is a fantastic company. Golden makes virtually everything that Joe Sonia makes. Golden, I think, has a slightly better reputation than I think it's suitable for museums and stuff like that. Okay, I've hmm, okay. I find that does the same. It doesn't dry out as quick, and it really works great. And I can thin it to the point where I get a good coverage, and I don't see the wood bleeding through. Yet I'm not filling in any nooks and crannies. Okay, it's a matte finish. Yeah, it's a matte finish. So, um, so on this particular piece, I have used chestnuts ebonizing lacquer on it, and I didn't spend a lot of time sanding or preparing this piece, and it did get bumped around in the car a little bit, so I have to fix that. But at any rate, I can fix that later. Um, that's a shame. That got bumped. But at any rate, we'll put some paint on this. And how does that look? That looks good, actually. Okay, so we're going to go back to my favorite tool, which is and then I no, this one is using ebonizing lacquer. We don't really want the gesso on this. We just want the lacquer. So these are the specialty color set from Joe Sonia, and it's kind of deceiving to use them because they all look the same. And when you squirt them out, it looks identical. Yet this one's labeled as red iridescent, and this other one is gold iridescent. How would you know? If you mix them up, how would you couldn't tell. But it's pretty easy to work with this stuff. What I usually do is I squirt a little bit out and I put it on that palette, and I use I got a dog here. I use just random brush strokes, not too much. You don't want too much on there. Yeah, sorry about that. Take my head out. I know of a lot of people that would like to do that. So is it coming together? So I use that little palette when I have too much paint on the brush. And again, it's kind of random where I'm doing this, and a little goes a long way. I mean, you'd be surprised. I've done a lot of stuff with just these little tubes, and I'm nowhere near using them all the way. So again, this goes pretty quickly when you actually focus on it. Okay. Okay. At this point, I'm going to just simply take a paper towel and clean off the brush real quick just by doing one of those. That's it. So it's not anything too crazy. So that was the red, and that was the cap. Okay, and here's the golds, which I'm going to put in a different area on the palette. I'll try to keep my head out of there. Is the head it's still in the way? Okay. I have 6 different colors to put on here, so I don't want to take up a lot of space with every color. So I don't want one to overpower the rest. But as you can see, I'm not an artist by any means. But this is not a difficult task. Any of us can do it. If I can do it, you guys can do it. So when I'm done, this will look surprisingly cool, even with me doing it. I think, yeah, for me, yeah, everything's a surprise with me because I'm not an actual artist. There are many people far more talented than I. This one is turquoise iridescent. So I pick another spot on the white palette, and I'm just careful not to overlap too much if I can help it. I can overlap if I want to, but I am trying not to overlap that much. And there's no reason you can't mix colors too if you choose to. So, whoop, that's too much. So if I were to put that on there, that would be too much on here. And you can see the line that I have on the inside. That's where I'm going to start my cut for the inside of the bowl. So so I have some guidelines. So spending time or materials up in that area is just a waste of paint and time. Not much. When it dries, there's really very little. What you can do also with this paint is you can thin it out. And if you thin it out, you'd have to use a medium for that. But you can blow it around with an air brush, which is kind of cool. Gives you a neat effect. It's not it dries out. So if you let it dry completely. You can see on these other ones, there's really no texture to speak of with it. Okay, so that's part of it. So I'm halfway through it. Now I'm adding another color, and all I'm doing is I'm just wiping off the brush. That's all I'm doing, and then I'm finding a new clean spot on the expensive chive and cream cheese thing here. So that's a blue that's added to, and I'm trying to add this now where I don't have stuff already. You can see how this is coming together, and it looks. I usually let it dry at least an hour or so, and I don't coat over the top of these. What I try not to do is put it on too thick like I did there. So I try not to have it too thick on. I guess that's why it probably dries quick. So again, I'm trying to make sure the black, this is a case where you want to cover all of the black as best you can, which is different than with the chameleon flakes. I did a couple pieces where I felt that I had to cover everything, and it really looked terrible. And once this flattens out, it will look okay. And it flattens when it dries. So I have two more colors to add too. So I've been rushed with some of this, I guess. This is another color here. Chroma colors. I'm sorry, I missed it. What type of paint? Yes. I tried that at the symposium. Jeff had that, and that's the one that's thin. It's the same basic product as this. It's just thinned out, and you can push it around pretty cool with the airbrush, and it works really well. Okay, so we're at the home stretch here. So I'm finding a new spot here on my piece. This is similar colors to some of the other one, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time with that color. Okay. And I'm trying to make sure I get all of the black covered as best I can. So I get one more color to go here. That's a great idea. See, these people, you guys are artists. I'm not an artist. I'm learning by the Braille method here pretty much. I'm not really that good at this stuff. You want to know something cool that you can do with this? Is you can take a piece of yarn, or several pieces of yarn, 4 pieces of yarn, coat it with this paint, and let's set a zigzag pattern that gets progressively smaller, and then you pull that down and have more of a, and that makes a beautiful bowl. That's well, yeah, it is. It would be messy, but it'll be cool. But I haven't done one with a solid color. This color is green incandescent. So I have some areas here that are missing some color, and I get a clump on the brush, which I don't want. Thank you. Okay, we're almost done. So all the spots I'm missing, I just put this green in there, and we're done. Okay, that's going to be the end of it. Now, it looks a little crappy right now because you see the white that is not going to dry white. It's going to show the original color through, but that gives you an idea of what this is going to look like. And this will give you an idea of what the final product. And you can see there's really no texture to this at all. And that's what you'll get here once this dries out. It's going to take at least an hour or so for it to dry out. So we'll just let that sit. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put a leather wrap, and this one I won't pass around because you get it on your hands, which would be fun to watch, you know, people trying to get it off and all that. But I'll rinse this off, and then we'll put the leather bead. It's handy having a sink here. It's great. All righty. Yes. Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. And Golden also makes interference paints, and they're almost the same as this. I just find this little tiny tube thing so convenient to use because everything I do is relatively small, and I want all 6 colors on it. So it's just easy to dispense it. And this is pretty inexpensive. They go on sale. I don't know. Every single holiday, Joe Sonia has a sale, you know. Blue Moon, they have a sale, and the prices are great. So I think they're pretty reasonable, and you get your product in less than a week. I think it comes from California. No. I go directly to Joe Sonia. Okay, so the leather bead, there's tricks to it. I'm going to show you guys the tricks. So leather banding comes in a lot of different colors. I find that the 2mm is the best. I'm going to bring all these out so you guys can see them. So there's a lot of secrets I'm going to share. Here's the most important one. So I'm a fly fisherman. So with a fly fisherman, we have a thing called a bodkin that we use to tie flies. They're very expensive. You go to a fly fishing store, they cost a fortune. If you go to Hobby Lobby, you go to the cake decorating section. I know some of us would have to hide going in there. This is like $2. It costs nothing. So you can get the same thing as a bodkin for next to nothing at Hobby Lobby for cake decorating. You need a good X-Acto type knife. I made my own knife. So I took one of those cheap ones and I used an 8mm brass tube, and I made my own. I like it. It's worked well for many, many years. But as you can see, this rat's nest here is a mix of different colors. So I had prepared one of these. Actually, you know what I should have done is we should have added the chameleon flakes to this one. Then we could have finished this piece, but that's okay. We'll just add the leather to it. So I cut the groove here because I have that groove, and I know that that groove is going to be filled with the leather piece. I didn't worry so much about my painting. As you can see, my painting isn't perfect, but it doesn't really matter because the leather piece is going to fill that void. Okay, there is a trick to putting this leather stuff on, and the trick lies with the adhesive. So the adhesive that I use is a mix of 2 adhesives. One is called Barely, like bear. Oh, does that? Can you see that? Probably not. It's called Barely Art, and it's a great adhesive. And the reason why it's such a great adhesive is it has really good strength, number one. Number two, it dries clear. And number 3, they give you an easy applicator. And the applicator has a metal tube on it that is absolutely perfect for the 2mm um, leather. So the first thing I do is I get that set up on the barely art, and I make sure that my hole is not plugged, which it's not. Okay. Then we choose the color. This glasses had side shields and they fog. Okay, so we're going to choose the color. So this is an ash bowl. So I'm trying to figure out what color to add to that. I put a black stripe here. I can do it in black, or I can make it, red or blue or gray. Anybody have a preference? Red? Okay, red it is. Okay, so the rest of the rat's nest goes away. You can get it in gray as well. It's not very expensive, and that's an Amazon product. Okay, so the first step you do is you cut this at an angle. And it just is pretty simple to do that. Can't see it because I'm in the way. Sorry about that. I just cut that at an angle. And the reason being is when I join it together, I need to join it at an angle. Okay. The second thing is we're going to straighten it out as best we can so it doesn't have all the coils, so I'm not fighting that. The third thing we do is we cut it a little bit oversized so we get a reference point. Okay. It's kind of like putting on a bicycle tire, if anybody's ever done that. Okay. Okay, I got to move it over. So I'm just getting a dimension here, and the dimension is longer than I need by just a smidge. And then I get this out of the way. Okay, so now here's the tricky part. I use a mix of the two adhesives. And the reason I need two is because this has a very low tack to it. This has a pretty good tack to it. So this is like a shoe glue or a fabric cement. It's actually a fabric cement and has a really good tack to it. So where I join the pieces together, that's where I use this. And I use this for about 1.25 inches, something like that. And you put that on with the bodkin. So make sure this is clean. And I go in and I just coat it like that. Can you guys see that? And then I got to figure out where I'm putting this because I got to mark it. And I got about almost, I'm going to put one more layer of it. This takes a little bit longer to dry. Okay. So I know where that is. And well, this is still wet. I'm going to take the remainder of the stuff off and put this back on. Okay, here's the easy part now. I know where that adhesive is. So what I'm going to do is pick up where that stopped. Just go around with a thin bead. See how easy this is? I've got a little extra there than I need. Okay. And if you miss a spot, it's really not a super big deal because it's be held into the groove anyway. And you just don't want to go over the top of the fabric cement. Am I not in the right way? With the white glue. You kind of want that to be, an island on itself here. That's about it. And I'll clean that out in a bit. I take the end that I cut and I put that, I don't know if you guys can see this, if you have enough resolution there. You can see right here is the clear, and that's the fabric cement. And that's where I'm putting this piece. And basically I'm pushing it right smack dab in the middle of the fabric cement. And I'm putting the cut angle at like a bologna cut at no, it's sideways. And then I'll wrap this around. Whoop. Again, it's not super difficult, but it's not super easy either. Okay, now I'm right back where I was, but I've picked up some glue on my hands and I've got some extra glue on here, and I want to pull this tight in that groove, and then I'm going to cut that angle. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it up, and I can see my angle here that I have to cut at. So I'm going to cut at that angle, just like that. That should be it. Yep. Okay, then whoop. We don't reach for knives that fall. And then this is water cleanup. So all the extra comes right off. And this will dry clear, so you won't even see it. But basically, we're done with this. And I think you can see that a slight, I'm going to point with the bodkin. You can see a very, very slight angle here, but you see I matched that angle of the cut pretty good. Can you guys see that? You can't really even find this. I mean, unless you're really looking for it. Yep. Well, the fabric cement is going to set real quick. The other stuff is going to take a little while, but now is the time to take any extra off if you feel that you put too much on, because it's water soluble, so it'll come right off. Yeah, so it's not quite ready to be passed around, but it's got a pretty good bond already. So that's what it's going to look like with the red bead on there. And what I should have done is probably put the chameleon flakes on this one. Then I could have finished that bowl. But that's basically what we're looking for. And then on this side here, what I would do is I would use the gilt cream from Chromacraft, and I put my finger on it. So at first, when I first started doing it, I bought what's called a finger cot, which looks like a miniature condom type thing. And I tried to put that on because then I could keep the paint off my hand. It actually did a terrible job of applying the gilt cream. So the fingerprints that you have do a better job of holding that gilt cream and pushing it into where it needs to go. So I just go in the opposite direction of the spiral, and then I go back in the direction of the spiral, and I get a really good coverage, and the bottom stays nice and black with the gesso. You can give it a shot of lacquer over the top if you wish. You don't have to. It's pretty robust, and the gilt cream does dry, so it'll dry over time. That's pretty much what we're looking at, and that's pretty much it. So I know we have a lot of questions, and I want to make sure I answer everybody's question. Yes, sir. I bought some wider and I didn't like the way it looked. And to use something wider, then you're going to need a wider cutter. And as it turns out, the round tip from Easy Wood is absolutely perfect for that 2 mil leather cord. The other thing I found too is if you can get the leather cord that has a smooth finish, like a nice shoe, for example, rather than a suede. The suede picks up all the glue and it makes it difficult to get a nice clean finish. Mm-hmm. But I think the key to this is when you sharpen this, to have the tip be super, super sharp. And as you notice when I cut there, I didn't have any fray or tear out on the side. And that's because I've broken that edge. That's really, really critical to that. And that can be done with a diamond stone. And the diamond stone, I just use those credit card ones. I've had the same one for, I don't know how long, 15, 20 years. And I just have the finest one that they make. I usually use a Trend lubricant, which makes it a little bit easier to cut, and it also keeps it from rusting. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's this one. So that's no, no. So that's this one here. And basically, on the Robert Sorby tools, they have a plate at the bottom. The Simon Hope does not. The Simon Hope is more. I've used it so much, I know kind of the angle by feel, and I know how to operate it. The one from Sorby has that plate which has indexes. So the key to it is if you move it 1 to 1.5 to 2 in one direction, you have to duplicate that exactly. So you couldn't have 1.5 and then a 2 because you wouldn't get a nice triangle like this. So your triangle for each side would be different. Mhm. Yep, that's correct. And the other thing too is that on this particular piece here, what I do is I have a little bit of extra runway. And if you're going off the end, it's no big deal. You can just trim it, right? So you make the bowl a little bit shorter. But on this direction, you need a little bit of extra runway to. So I leave that the same size as this, and then I cut it down where I get the I kind of hide that extra runway area. So I make the bowl a little bit smaller in that area. And I've made some really big ones. This is just one that I was horsing around with. It's not even a great piece of wood. So, mhm. For all texturing, it's a game of speed. You really have to get the speed sorted out, and you really don't want to go over 550 RPM, and you want to be between 300 and 550 RPM. It does change the spacing, and also if you're going really fast, it'll just make a jumbled mess that you won't be able to do anything with. You won't even be able to go back with a burr, for example, and recut that. You can't even do that. It's just a jumbled mess. I've read that. No, I've experienced that. Yes, sir. From when I did this one, the diameter would be the same because you don't want to change the diameter with this. You want to keep the it's a parallel side here. And that's a good question. Um, I did each one differently. So when I pulled in one direction, and then when I changed it, reversed it, I went in the other direction. But like I said, you go over a little bit, so you do have an area that's a little bit messy, and then you have to cut that back. Yeah, just cut that off. Exactly. Yeah, yeah. So that's how I did it. Yeah, that's how I did it. Um, and I made a really big one, and I gave it to Doug Thompson. So actually, he bid on it at a turning event and bought it. I don't know, but I made a bigger one. So, any other questions? Hmm. Okay, so the laser that I use is a laser called Neje, Neje, and the key to these things is you really don't want a lot of power to them. So for maximum resolution, like I'll pass this one around. Um, Not this one. Um, there was the one I did with the rounded bottom, and maybe this one. Okay, that one. So yeah, and here's another one. You can pass Harold. This one is another one. So the key is to not have a lot of power. The higher the power, the less the thank you, the less the resolution to it. So if you get like a 30 watt, you won't be able to get the super fine lines that you really want to show the item. Yes. Oh, okay. I'll go back to. I'll move. Sorry. So the Niji is a super cheap laser. They're inexpensive. They're under $300. You can buy them online. There's a place called the Niji store. You can get spare parts from them on Etsy. I've already burned out one laser. I've had it for a number of years, and it's really performed great. I use it with a Macintosh. So if I take a picture, actually, I use it with my iPad, and I can take a picture and I can import that, and it just does a great job. Super, super easy. I'm sorry? Yes. Hmm. And I like it. It's been a good machine. Yeah. And I had there's a guy in um, I think he's in Australia that made a rotary to convert it from an XY to an XYZ. Z gives you the rotary, so if you want to do pens and things like that, which was really kind of really okay. Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, every one I've done with the rotary, and it's worked out great. They've been super high quality, and I've been real happy. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the Nietzsche's a great value. You know, it's a hobbyist machine. It's not something you want to use in a factory, but for the money, you can't go wrong. I think. I know. Yeah. 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 Hmm. Okay. Any other questions or any questions about turning or um, so if anybody's going to the annual AAW symposium, you going as well? Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll be there as well. And Doug Thompson, who some of you may know, it will be hopefully introducing a new parabolic flute bowl gouge, which we've been testing. And I have to say that the performance of that gouge is just unbelievable. So Doug is doing some really cool stuff, and it'll be his first new tool since his first wife passed, I guess. So it'll be kind of a cool thing. Doug is a super guy. He's my neighbor in the Villages, so I see him all the time. So I like his tools. So okay. And anything else? Any other questions or no? Thank you. Thank you.